Hello, hello, and welcome everyone for take 2 of our impromptu career coaching session. So Facebook let me do a little test. So I think that this audio is working now, and it was just a setting. I don't know how it got switched around. I had trouble with my speakers earlier today, so I obviously was muddling with settings. All right, so Danielle, you're here and you can hear me, so I'm going to take that as a thumbs up. So what I was talking about, which you probably saw me like commenting on my necklace. So I was very intentional about choosing this necklace today. And if you notice, like it has a rainbow, which I've just redecorated my office. And I noticed how much rainbow type artwork I have, but what really called to me today was the tree. And as you know, we just opened registration for the Business Analyst Blueprint training program, and I think of it a lot as the roots and the trunk of a tree and what we need to be successful as a business analyst. Because often what we see when we look at other people is we see their leaves, right? We see the things that are happening in their career and the great, interesting projects that they get to work on, and the success they're having, and the promotions and the salary raises, and maybe the car that they're driving. Like, we see all the stuff on the outside. We see the leaves, right? And the leaves in this necklace are super comfortable, colorful. We don't see the roots at all. And we also often don't pay as much attention to the trunk. And what's significant about the trunk is, it expands in a tree year after year after year. There's one new ring every year that grows and expands. And this is like us, right? In our careers and our lives, we grow and expand year and after year after year. And everything that helped us like get to that next level is with us as we get to the next level, right? So we grow and expand from that base, and that's part of how a tree grows. But the roots are so important, and we don't see that. The roots are which soak up the energy and soak up the nutrients and soak up the water. Without the roots, the tree just falls over, right? And the roots for me in business analysts are these core foundational skills. So we might also liken the leaves to like, oh, that industry experience and that latest tool and the this and the that, right? But that core foundation of those core skills, it's what allows us to be successful in all kinds of situations. So when I chose this today, it was very intentional, and I always like to open with a little story or an anecdote while Facebook does its magic and allows us to connect. So we have quite a few people listening in. Feel free to say hello, let me know where you're from, and if you have any questions. I'm going to dive in here because we actually have quite a few questions that have come in from the email box, and I also looked into the group as well. So the first one comes from Roseanne. And Roseanne says, your trainings were perfect for me to learn what a BA actually does, and it helped me complete the discovery of many of my projects, some of which were even canceled before we invested too much time because we had learned that other programs and systems within the corporation would take care of their needs. It is actually making me consider moving into a BA role instead of a PM role. I'm new at the PM role, 2 years, so not super new, but I can feel new even after a couple years, and with many changes taking place. So I'm not yet ready to take that leap. However, the emails you send and the information you share are all wonderful points that I'm using to make a future decision. So the reflection I have for Roseanne is like, you are in the leap, right? Like, you can do this right here, right now. You don't need to change your company. You don't need to change employers. You don't need to change departments or even your title, right? You are in the BA role if you are doing the BA role as part of your project management work. So just keep exploring and expanding your skill set, right? Build those rings year after year and following the threads that lead you to business analysis. The other thing that I just want to reflect for everyone there is how much value that Roseanne added when those projects were canceled even before the company invested in them. Right, so those canceled projects like saved a lot of resources that can go to projects that will add more value. And when we have our peer project management hat on, we're often looking at like, okay, we have this thing we need to get done. What are the resources? What's the schedule? How can I make this happen? That BA hat is the hat that's like, should we even be doing this in the first place? And many project managers wear that hat as well. Super important. But when you're wearing that hat, it is more of a business analysis hat, and you can wear it as part of your project management role. So well done, Roseanne. All right, and let's just kind of check in here. So hi, Leonardo from Vancouver, British Columbia. We are planning a trip there. So maybe I'll see you. I'm actually presenting at the IIBA chapter there, and I'm doing first of its time, a one-day training workshop at the end of September on our BA Essentials Masterclass. And Danielle is from Ottawa, Ontario. Welcome, Danielle. I was actually just in Toronto, and that makes it sound like I'm a world traveler. I'm really not. I'm pretty much a homebody, but I have gotten to Canada twice in the last, well, I will be twice in about 6 weeks. But I don't think my passport had been used for like 7 or 8 years before that. So, but it's wonderful. I had a great time in Toronto and great time in Canada. And I'm looking forward to going to Vancouver. It looks like it's going to be beautiful and amazing. All right. So welcome, welcome. Great to have you all here. Feel free to drop a question in if you have one. So the next one, Danielle, I think this is from you, right? You had said, I'm a newish business analyst and purchased some of your products in the past and started. So thank you for that. Started a new job, congratulations. And the developers have said they want the requirements captured in user stories. And you're like, great, that's easy. However, there is a lot more information to capture than just having them write user stories, i.e. what fields do you want to see? What are your pain points? Who has permissions, etc. And I'm looking for something that might help me. And what are the, like, do I need 2 documents, one for the developers and one to answer these questions? And what would that second document look like? So this question about like what documentation to create is so important, because on an agile team, like, our developers probably have certain expectations for us about what they're looking to see. But we can say like, oh, we've seen a user story on the website or whatever, and it's just this like little snippet of information, like as a user, I do this to accomplish this, right? So there's like this very little bit of information. Often, in my experience, those little pieces of information have been accompanied by some detail. And that detail could be a wireframe, it could be an end-to-end use case that shows the bigger picture of how that little slice fits into the context of the system we're developing. It could be a list of the business rules that need to be implemented along with that user stories. So there's often some detail that needs to come with it, unless you are in close proximity and constant verbal communication with those developers. Then you're communicating those details more on the fly. But very often, all of us benefit from having like some track record, some memory of what we decided. So I think you're on the right track with these details need to be documented somewhere or specified somewhere, and start to put some of those ideas to them. Like, I'm finding that we need to have these details covered. Like, how have those been communicated to you effectively in the past? What would you like to see? Where would you expect to see them? And just start to have that connection and that collaboration with them. And then the first time you do it for this particular team, ask them, did this work for you? And if it didn't work for you, what would be better? Let's adjust this process and communication standard. And I say this because I've done the opposite on agile teams, where like I went from one agile team to a completely different agile team, and I did what worked for the last team, and it did not work for the new team. And I got a lot of backlash and a lot of criticism, and it made it harder for me as a new BA in that organization. Even though I had a lot of experience behind me, it made it harder for me to build trust and credibility with those developers, because they kind of felt like I was doing things that they would typically be doing. So yeah, definitely make that an open and collaborative. And at the same time, though, when we're talking about the trunk and the roots, right, make it open and collaborative, but don't lose, that doesn't mean you have to give up your business analysis expertise and what you know is right as a business analyst, because they could be like, yeah, just give me those little snapshots and I'll implement whatever I want. And you're like, well, these rules are actually really important to the business, or I also analyze the business process and here's the pieces that we need to make sure are covered, right? Like, you don't want to lose that business orientation, and you don't want to lose the details that you know are important and just assume that they will pick those up. So that's an area for you to demonstrate some leadership and some expertise from your BA greatness to make sure that is held in the project as well, so that the requirements really represent what's needed and wanted by the business. So if you have any follow-ups about that, Danielle, feel free to be in touch. And Leonardo says, great, it will be a pleasure to meet you in person. Oh, I'm so glad that you're going to get to be there. That's exciting. And hi, Kaliana, welcome, welcome. Great to have you here. All right, so next question I had. Nikita asked, I've loved the online sessions, thank you. I do realize though that I was not titled as a business analyst. I was working on the same lines in my previous organization for 2 years. I am an SAP consultant working and was for support and maintenance, for a support and maintenance project for an automobile client in North America. And there was a lot of requirements gathering, documenting technical and functional specifications, getting it done from teams, and finally delivering it. I recently moved to Toronto. I don't know what's with Canada right now, but Canada is really well represented. And I'm looking out for jobs. However, I'm finding it difficult to get a job as an SAP consultant with just 2 years of experience. Will pitching as a business analyst open more doors to get interviews? And also, will the Blueprint program certificate be recognized and accepted by recruiters or HR departments in Canada? So definitely yes to pursuing BA roles in addition to SAP roles could open up opportunities, because all of the work that you've done in requirements gathering, technical documentation, functional specifications, that is, again, those roots in that trunk, those core BA skills that you can take with you to industry, from tool to tool. They are going to be tools and abilities that will help you be successful in a wide variety of situations, okay? So those core skills travel with you even as those leaves, those trends change. Like maybe SAP is just not as predominant in Canada, in Toronto. That would be something to research generally as well. So in terms of the and one other thing I wanted to share there with you too is also look at Salesforce, because Salesforce.com is becoming a more widely adopted alternative to SAP. And the expertise that you created by being part of these support and maintenance projects for SAP, that you have that functional domain expertise, how people use or how organizations use systems like this to improve their business. And so if you learn something like Salesforce, it could be a very cutting edge tool that's becoming very widely adopted, that would potentially, but then you can bring your SAP experience forward. Again, that more foundational experience of how a tool like that, an enterprise tool like that, really impacts an organization, not the specific tool experience, but it could be another entryway or foot in the door for you. In a lot of areas, Salesforce.com is like, it's such a compelling skill set that you really, like, employers are hiring people with less experience because it's hard to find people who are qualified. And one of our partners, Tony Martin, is a great person to connect with about Salesforce business analysis. All right, so in terms of the Blueprint, you were asking if it would be a recognized program. So Bridging the Gap is an endorsed education provider with IIBA, and we're also a registered education provider with PMI. So this is a credible, recognized program. One of my partners, May Bush, we were on a webinar together for the last registration period. She's like, this is a really like grown-up program, right? Which I thought was an interesting way to put it. Like, this is the 5th time we've run it, and it's based on courses that we've been teaching for at least 6 or 7 years. So it's like, there's a lot in here. It's very credible, very recognized, industry standard business analysis skills. However, I always like to be totally upfront, like whether a specific recruiter or HR group is going to recognize that program really depends on their perspective and training in general. So it's not like, you know, every recruiter all over the globe knows about the Blueprint, just like they probably don't know about most specific training programs. They might know about the CBAP. They might know about IIBA. They probably know about PMI. So like, that's the credibility that you're bought into, but they often are not looking for like specific training programs. They're looking for your skills, your experience, your ability to do that job, right? They're looking for those things. And we have had participants all over the world benefit from our training. In fact, since we're talking about Toronto, Annette Richards was one of our participants in the spring 2018 session, and she you leveraged what she learned in the blueprint and the confidence that she received to go from a lead BA role to a management position. But again, I don't think it was like the fact that she got the certificate of completion. Like, it wasn't the certificate itself, right? It was the skills and the confidence that she had and the ability that she had to train and teach and mentor others that she got by pursuing that credential. And that's what you really invest in when you invest in a program like the Blueprint. So really, really important question. Okay. I'm just going to pause. Welcome. We've got, oh man, dozens of people here. So feel free to say hello. Let me know where you're from, and if you have any questions about what we've been covering in the free training, your business analyst career, or the Blueprint program, which we just opened registration for today. Woohoo! Oh, and I didn't comment on this yet, and I'm actually kind of sitting in front of it, but I did want to mention, so I mentioned how I kind of reorganized my office so that I didn't have just this plain white wall behind me. It made it really easy for me to go live. We also have up here a Post-it note, a sticky for each person who has registered. So we had a pre-registration period in July. It was way long ago. And we had some people continue from the last session. So these are all our pre-registration people. And I saw one of my mentors do this, and I just thought it was a super cool way to show the impact that you're having with a program like this. So as new people register, I've got my Post-its here, and I actually just ordered some more today because this might not be enough, and my Sharpie, and I'll be writing names up and putting them there so you can kind of see as we go the enrollment grow. But something new and exciting, and I always like to try new and exciting things during our registration period. All right, so last question I have from kind of what came in before, but again, happy to stay on and answer additional questions as they come in. But we had a really great question from Shen, and Shen says, I'm a project coordinator for a biotech company for the last 7 years, and I think about change to the business analyst side. As I think about that change and look for a job, but I'm missing some skills like flow charting, and your course, the Blueprint, has a lot of those skills that I can prepare for. But I also have a doubt, and I wanted to answer this question because I'm sure a lot of people have this doubt. If I'm going to take this class, how do I transfer my skills into my next job? So if I'm looking at a job posting and it's about business analysis and they all require 3 to 5 years of experience, that's very typical, even for quote unquote entry level, I'm not sure if a course like this does. And also participated in another program and they said the skills are going to be relevant, and then it didn't pan out that way. So here's the deal. Yes, the work you do in the Blueprint, well, first of all, this is the difference. The work you do in the Blueprint will count as experience. So part of the Business Analyst Blueprint training program is that, yes, we teach you how to analyze a business process and write a use case and do data modeling, right? But you also apply that in your current work. So you are using those skills, and we will help you find ways as a project coordinator. That's a perfect setup to get into more of a business analyst role, to apply that in your current work. So you're building that on-the-job experience that helps frame you for those more mid-level roles that require the 3 to 5 years of experience, okay? And the other thing it will help you do is look back and be like, wait a minute, this isn't the first time I've done this. We have this happen quite often. I've actually been doing this before. I've done this before. And then you can appreciate the depth of your transferable business analyst skills, okay? Because many project coordinator roles, just like many project manager roles, are actually BA roles in disguise. And if they're not, if you start doing the kinds of things that we teach you, especially with business process analysis, which we cover in the free training as well, you'll start to inch that forward, okay? The other thing I want to say is we are teaching you industry standard skills, but not all organizations apply industry standards, right? It doesn't mean that you use the word workflow diagrams, or flow charts. We use the term workflow diagrams and process flow diagrams. Those are all the same thing. An organization might call it something else, right? And so there is a process and that you need to go through as part of applying for jobs and preparing for interviews, and even just acknowledging the depth of your past experience where you make that translation. And sometimes you have to make it for the employer. So they often will not read in between the lines for you. You have to read in between the lines for them and make it crystal clear how what you're doing qualifies you for that role, or what you've done qualifies for you for that role. And because of this, like, we don't make promises about job placement. I'm very clear about that in many, many ways. There are so many factors that go into you successfully getting a job, like what your resume is like, what you interview like, the experience you have, the nature of the job environment in your local area. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into that. And so I don't want to make a promise that I can't keep. What I can promise is that you will have an expanded set of confidence in those skills that we teach you, and that those are that, like, underlying trunk, back to my necklace, and tree, like, and roots that are critical to so many skills, even if employers, a lot of times, they're looking for the leaves, right? So they're looking for a specific kind of experience, or a specific domain, or a specific industry, right? There's a lot of attention even from employers on those leaves. But then when they get into that interview situation, they're like, gosh, this person, like, connects all the dots on paper, but there's something missing. And what's missing is those roots. And they don't necessarily even know how to communicate that that's what's missing. So if you felt like you were in a job situation or an interview situation and just you didn't know what you missed, often it's something about your ability to show up and communicate like a VA would, and give them this confidence that you can do the kinds of things they need you to do, even if they really don't know how to describe what they're looking for. And that's just the state of the profession today. So, as I mentioned, we don't make job placement or promises, but we have had a lot of people in the program get jobs either during the program or soon after. If you've been following our case studies, which I'm going to do a live talking specifically about some of the success stories tomorrow. Roshni was a part-time BA. She was a support analyst, so even really further from business analysis than a project coordinator. And just 4 weeks into the program, she moved into a part-time BA role. So she was doing part support analyst and part BA. Amelia McHenry went from technical writer to business analyst. Perry was unemployed when he joined the Blueprint, and about a month after finishing the Blueprint, received 2 job offers in 1 week. So we do see a lot of people making these switches and creating that kind of success for themselves. But it is the skills, it is the experience, it's the confidence that comes from that. And then it's the ability to talk about that in your resume and in the interview situation. So I'm glad that we had that question. Okay. So anything else coming up? All right, it looks like it's been pretty quiet. All right. Other questions, concerns, anything I can help you with today? All right, well, I'm going to jump off then. I will be back tomorrow to talk about some of the success stories and just share kind of the wins and the celebrations and some of the things that we've celebrated in our community, and answer any other questions that we have received. It's just my goal to show up and serve as much as possible and inspire you by what's possible. Because what I see as we start to go through this process is it's like, it's not possible for me because, right? And sometimes it's like really not the right time. I actually had somebody email me today. I was like, yeah, it's not the right time for you. And this person had been in a blue collar job for a long time, had only what they called blue collar experience. And so I was like, we're not the best company to help you go from blue collar work to business analysis work. Go find a job in an office setting, professional setting, whatever you're doing, and then we're the right company to help you. Like, in terms of making that transition from one to the other, like, that's not my genius work, like, right? And I didn't want to not help this person, but I also was like, I knew that it wasn't the right time to join the Blueprint. But so often we put up these other smoke screens, and it's not just about joining the program, it's also about stepping forward for ourselves. So if you've gone through the free training, which it's still available to you, that very first lesson was around action creates confidence. And you can't ever get to the confidence if you're sitting there like in doubt and this and that and this and that. So I'm going to be sharing these stories. I'm going to be answering these questions. I'm going to be guiding you forward in order to help you see what actions that you can take. It's the way I know how to show up and be of my best service in the community. And so I'm going to be doing a lot of that this week, a lot of answering questions, a lot of pushing you to move forward and invest in yourself and in your career and take that next step. So that's what I had to share with you. Think about what your tree, what your roots look like, and what you want to see on those beautiful leaves on the outside too. All good. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Again, Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, and we help you start your business analyst career. We build our profession one business analyst at a time, and success starts with you. Thank you.